Hello and welcome to We the People.
This week in Alaska history, so this is part of our company-wide celebration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Started this past July 4th, and it's going to continue until July 4th, 2026. And as our part of it is, we're sharing bits of Alaska history. I know, other places in the lower 48, obviously there was no United States when they signed the Declaration of Independence. That's what started it all. But we really weren't part of much of that 250-year history.
No. We're a state in 59?
Yeah.
59, but before that a territory.
Yeah. And of course, long history before that. We have just such an amazing history here in Alaska. I'm Tracy Sinclair. With me is Jennifer Summers. And you don't see her on camera a lot. She is our producer, the person who produces The Reset, which you can see at 4:30, 5:30, and 6:30 on channels 2 and 5. And but she is a history buff.
And when I found out about this project, I was like, I raised my hand. I will face a camera for this.
Let me do this. And lifelong Alaskan.
Yes.
Born and raised in Nome. And so you've got a good history yourself, but let's start with your first item for this week.
This week was the opening of what is now called Alaska Pacific University, but it began as Alaska Methodist University in 1960. This week, it held its first class on the Anchorage campus. It was founded by a man called Peter Gordon Gould, and he was the first Alaska Native minister in the United Methodist Church. Originally from Unga, which is an island in the Aleutians just east of Cold Bay, he had to go to college in Syracuse, New York, which is a long way away, a long way from home. And I remember when I went to college, I had some culture shock.
Major culture shock, yeah. Going from Nome to someplace in the lower 48?
Yeah. So I'm sure he did too. And so he wanted to create a place where Alaskans could get an education. So he founded the Alaska Methodist University right here in Anchorage.
Yeah, and now, as we said, it has become Alaska Pacific University. Still connected with the Methodist Church and partners with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium as well. So I vaguely remember it being Alaska Methodist University. We were going through a lot of university changes. Anchorage Community College became part of UAA, and that caused a lot of angst and issues for a lot of times. And I think it was kind of around, in my brain, it was around the same time that it started to change. It actually became something in between, I believe, Alaska Methodist University and now Alaska Pacific University.
Yeah.
There was an interim name as well.
Oh,
so.
Okay. Well, this next artist was born on this date, and he has strong ties to Alaska.
October 14th.
And you probably recognize the painting, Sidney Lawrence. He was born 160 years ago, known for his stark pastels. He was already famous by the time he came to Alaska. He was born in Brooklyn and studied and exhibited in New York, England, and Paris, and decided to up and move to Alaska in 1904. And as you said before, he's died here.
He died here as well. You see Denali there, one of his most favorite objects to paint. But yes, a couple of weeks ago on the same segment, we talked about Sidney Lawrence's death, which he predicted. He said, "I am going to die today," and got a haircut that morning. People said they, we'll see you again. And he said, "Nope, you won't." And he went to the hospital. You could smoke in the hospital at that time. That was the other bit of trivia I remember, is that he was smoking a cigarette, and he told his wife and the nurses that he is going to die. And by the next morning, he had passed away.
Wow.
So very interesting that he predicted his own death.
Wow, that's crazy. Another explorer was John Muir, and his connection to Alaska is he came up here in 1879, not to prospect or look for gold like so many people did, but he wanted to enjoy nature. And he was a famous naturalist and conservativist. He is called often the father of the National Park Service. And on this day, in 1879, he visited Glacier Bay with Tlingit guides. He loved Yosemite National Park before it was a national park, and he believed it was carved by glaciers, so he wanted to see firsthand how glaciers worked, and so he came up to Alaska, and of course
a number of years ago, we used to have a series here on Alaska's News Source called Cover to Cover. And this was one of the books that I covered with this. I was doing books that were either about Alaska or by Alaskan authors. This was both. Kim Haycox wrote this book, John Muir and the Ice That Started a Fire. Great title.
Love that title.
We've discussed that. We do think that's a fabulous title. How a Visionary and the Glaciers of Alaska Changed America. And it would not have been a book that I necessarily would have picked up, but I really found it fascinating and think it's a good read. Learned a lot about John Muir and what they endured on this trip to Glacier Bay National Park, or what eventually would become that. And so you see that, plus you see kind of an overall view of what he was doing and his influence. So I can definitely recommend that.
What's the title again?
John Muir and the Ice That Started a Fire, again by Kim Haycox. And yeah, really, really an excellent book. So I can recommend that one to read.
Fabulous. And this next story is about travel as well. A cargo
Sort
plane traveling from Anchorage, Alaska in 2000.
Yeah, it didn't get very far. 747, Northwest 747 cargo plane was taking off, and from out at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, they heard a thump and they aborted the takeoff, and you can see they're just a little bit past that runway, but they definitely went off the end of the runway about 500 feet from the tarmac into a cleared area. 2 tires shredded, 8 other tires flat. And at the time when we covered this story, we did talk to a gentleman about what had gone on.
The flight crew indicated that they began to feel some vibrations and heard some noises, some popping noises, which clearly indicated that a tire or two had popped, and shortly after that began encountering some vibrations and made a decision halfway into the takeoff roll to shut down the aircraft as quickly as possible.
Good idea.
Yeah. As we were, we've talked about this as we're setting it up. Better taking off than landing when you don't have 8 tires. That would just be terrifying to me.
And you've been on a plane that had tires blow out.
Yes, as I was taking off for Australia from LA, this was years ago. This was 2008, and I don't recall them saying brace, but it was a hard stop.
Yeah.
Smoke, fire trucks surround the plane. I mean, it is a big deal when these tires start to blow. And I don't know if you saw at the end of the video, they, of course, all the cargo on the plane had to be taken off the plane because that plane wasn't going anywhere for a while, not with 10.
It was weighted down. It needed to be
with 10 different tires blown.
Towed it away.
So yeah, really fascinating. Just thought that was kind of interesting to see that as it ended up off the runway out at Ted Stevens International Airport.
Yeah, crew of 3, I think.
Yeah,
because
nobody
cargo,
hurt.
so nobody
Everybody
was hurt.
survived. So that's also a good way to tell that
That's
story.
a good way to say, yeah. Aviation history, a very important part of Alaska, and on this date, in 1972, is when they started the search for Representative Nick Begich and Representative Hale Boggs. I think there was a staff member on the plane and a pilot, so there were 4 people on board, and they disappeared on a trip, I think it was to Juneau. And Eric Soule, our photographer, has a story about this.
Nick Begich. They call him Mr. Education.
In 1962, Nick Begich was a newly elected state senator, and Alaska was a very young state.
What's more important than a good, sound education?
He brought to the job a background in education.
College instructor, school teacher, counselor, and superintendent. He had a role in helping define our education system for the state of Alaska.
He also helped establish McLaughlin Youth Center for incarcerated youth.
We recently purchased an estate of a longtime Valley family, and they were very active in the Democratic Party for many years.
And Begich used education connections to reach out to the rural parts of the state.
Thanks for your help on all these years, Nick Begich, your congressman.
He served in the state legislature until 1970, when he defeated a banker by the name of Frank Murkowski to be elected to the U.S. House. It was an important time for Alaska.
Alaska's resources were being developed. There were a lot of moving parts. I mean, we were less than a decade into, or just over a decade into being a new state.
He helped move through the largest claim settlement by indigenous populations the country had ever seen.
As a freshman congressman, he was instrumental in the passage of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, leading to the creation of the 13 regional Native corporations and opening up land for the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline.
Incredibly important.
In '72, Begich was running for re-election.
Oh, you found one of the buttons. This is a button from my dad's 1972 campaign.
And it was while campaigning, his plane disappeared.
And he was reelected nonetheless, despite that.
Beating challenger Don Young, who later won the seat in a special election.
He was also the first to defeat Don Young for Congress and the last to defeat Don Young for Congress.
You can still find reminders of Nick Begich today.
This is Nick Begich, Nicholas Joseph Begich Middle School. This is the school name for my father.
There is also the Begich Boggs Visitor Center in Portage. House Majority Leader from Louisiana, Hale Boggs, was also on Begich's lost flight. And you drive past Begich Peak on your way to Whittier, where you will find the Begich Towers.
Who is Nick Begich? Well, he's a family man.
And you can see the Begich legacy in other ways.
Without a doubt, both my dad and my mother's legacy is her children.
6 kids, educators, public servants, and businessmen. And the ripples of people influenced are still present today.
There are folks, like I said, who come up to this day and say, your dad, I remember when I first met him, I remember he inspired me to get involved in public service.
Begich,
For Telling Alaska's Story, I'm Eric Soule.
vote for that man.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Never found the plane?
Still never, not yet. What I found fascinating is the statement that he was the first to beat Don Young and the only person to beat Don Young.
First and last.
The first and the last, which is pretty amazing. A statement about him, and also a statement about Don Young and his length and tenure in the House of Representatives. That was just amazing. Yeah, just amazing
And
there
his
as well.
grandson, Nick Begich III, is now our representative in the U.S. House.
Yeah, so kind of coming full circle. Interesting, very interesting.
And our final story, probably the most patriotic of them all, is on October 18th, we end the week. In 1867, the United States took possession of the state.
Oh.
Which was not a state then, it was just a territory from the Russians. The Russians wanted to sell the land actually much earlier, but negotiations were stalled due to the brewing Civil War. Secretary of State William Seward agreed to purchase Alaska for $7.2 million. We all know that amount. And skeptics called it Seward's folly until the territory became a gateway to the Klondike Gold Rush and subsequent gold rushes and other natural resources.
Right, I mean, yeah, then you turn, not really a gold rush, but liquid gold. The whole idea of oil in Alaska has been such a major thing for the lower 48.
And we're showing Sitka, because that's where the transfer actually took place.
Yes, and they do, they celebrate this week.
This week,
for
Friday is the observance, because it's a state holiday.
Right. So very exciting. And yeah, this is when Alaska got transferred over to the United States. So pretty good.
Yeah.
We have other stories about that coming up. I found an interesting one that I'm going to bring here. But I'm not going to share it here because I don't know all the details. But it's really,
deep tease.
really, yes, that's what we would call it in the news business, a deep tease. It was really a fascinating story about how that came about. So thank you very much. You will see
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
She's going to do more of these as we're doing them every week, as we said, all the way through July 4th of next year. And it's been really fun.
It's been really fun. I love doing the research. I love finding out new things and bringing them to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And of course, you can find us all the time on our free streaming apps on alaskasnewssource.com and on Amazon, Apple TV, and Roku. There you go. Have a good day.
You too.